Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Before I Do, the show that shares with you everything that you should do before saying I do. This show is for those of you who are dating, single, want to be married, don't know if you want to be married. Our responsibility and job is to help you, encourage you to have courageous conversations about dating and relationships.
And remember that this show is interactive. So find the feed, the chat. We want to hear your ideas, your opinions, and especially tonight, if you have a question about dating, a question about a relationship, any question, all questions are welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So put them in the chat area.
This is a special edition of Before I Do, our Speak Now Q&A night. This was something that was requested, that we have a Q&A night. When we were doing the different themes, individuals would ask us questions that were not necessarily related to the topic, and that's completely fine. So what we have decided to do was to designate the last Wednesday night of every month as Speak Now Q&A night, and so we're really excited for our first one. However, you will notice that we are not in our typical location, and so we are actually out of the area. We are from the Tampa Bay area, which is right now one of the areas that has been impacted by Hurricane Ian. And so we want to send a special shout out and our thoughts and prayers with those who are in the hurricane track. We want to say thank you to all of you who opened your hearts and your homes and have kept us in your thoughts and in your prayers. And yes, we are safe out of the area. We are excited about doing the show this evening, and you all will notice that we actually have a special guest with us tonight. This is one of my favorite people. This is my daughter. I'm going to have her to introduce herself. Go ahead.
She looks just like me.
I think not. Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat if you think she looks like a mom or dad.
You're trying to poll for votes. He's trying to poll for votes, people, ladies and gentlemen.
Put it in the chat.
She looks like me. She looks like me.
Hello, my name's Charmaine Jennings. I'm 19 years old and I'm in college and my degree is in criminal justice.
All right.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Charmaine, thank you for joining us tonight. Yes. Again, we wanted to not only as individuals who are experts, we are also lifelong learners. Absolutely. And so not only are we here to answer questions and to share our insight, but we also want to understand what dating is like in this day and age. And so wanted to have Charmaine on to share a little bit about her experience. I told her a long time ago when she was a little, Daddy, when can I date? You can date when you're 16 years old.
Yes.
And we did that because, again, we wanted to give her a goal, but we also wanted to make sure that she started getting dating experience while she was still in the home. Right. So she's been dating now for 3.5 years, almost 4 years, much to father's chagrin. And so, Charmaine, I wanted to have you share a little bit about what's the dating atmosphere, what's the culture like as far as with dating in this particular age.
One thing that me and Mom constantly talk about is the shift between you and Mom's generation when dating and our generation. So a lot of the standards, a lot of culture-wise, it's very different. One thing that I've noticed just being in college and the transition between high school to college is that a lot more people are less attracted to you. The more confidence you have, the more goals you have, the higher standards that you have. So it's definitely been a shift between that and now in college, because you think it would be more of we're in college, you want someone that's focused on life and has goals, but it's actually been the opposite. So it's very interesting.
So, and that can be tough because that has been your experience, that the more confidence you gain, the more, I guess, focused you are on bettering yourself, whatever that is, whether it's college, whether it's, accomplishing a goal, you found that less guys or less individuals find you or at least pursue you.
Yes.
Interested. So, ladies and gentlemen, what is that all about? So is it not attractive for a young woman to have a plan and to be focused on that plan and to be confident in, in a season and find that fewer individuals are attracted to that confidence?
And what's interesting about that, Charmaine, is I think that even though you mentioned some of the things that have changed between your generation and our generation, I would say that many people from my generation would actually empathize with you and say that there were definitely times where if you were focused on your individual growth, if you were focused on your education, if you weren't necessarily in the popular realm as far as having the latest, greatest brands, had the nicest car, you weren't, or if you weren't doing certain things that would get you attention, then those individuals oftentimes would express that it would be hard for them to find individuals to really date or have people that are interested in them. And so I think also too, what potentially complicates this generation as well is that it seems like women have become a lot more aggressive. So for individuals who are more traditional in the idea that men need to be the pursuers, men need to be the ones that are actually courting and pursuing the women and pursuing the individuals that they want to date, it's like, nah, I'm not going to do that because that, women need to show and prove to me. And so it seems like that's a bit of a change. Is that something you've experienced?
It has. One thing I have taken from you and Mom is that I want men to approach me. I don't like the culture of me having to approach the guy or asking him out on a date. And I just don't like that concept, at least for me. And I've noticed that a lot more guys are so used to women approaching them that they don't even have the confidence, or they just don't want to take the time to do so. So I'm sticking to my standards and things that I want.
Absolutely. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you have standards and you sticking to those standards and not lowering them. I think that's a really important part of dating and being effective in that. So yeah, we actually have a couple of people that have tuned in, and definitely want to give you a shout out. My man Darnell Thompson from Charlotte, North Carolina says, what is going on? We also have actually Faith. She says, good morning, watching from the Philippines.
Ooh, welcome.
We are
welcome,
international,
Faith.
Y'all. And Darnell actually has our first question of the evening. Darnell says, how can you get your marriage back on track if you haven't taken premarital classes, but fell off from infidelity, and yourself as the wife is having a hard time battling with the recovery process? Charmaine.
Well, I'll definitely interject with that. It can be challenging when you haven't had the premarital counseling, but I will tell you, the question becomes, is there ever a time where learning stops? And so if your response to that is, yeah, learning, you can't teach me anything else, then you know what? The teacher can't appear. And so the bottom line is, if you and your wife are open to learning, enhancing, improving, then definitely, whether you have premarital counseling or not, you definitely can heal and recover your relationship. And so because you both are evolving, the marriage and the work of marriage it's an education, it's a master class. So every day you wake up and you're going to learn something new about your partner. So first of all, we definitely believe in marriage wellness checkups. Like every year, your insurance company covers a wellness check, sometimes two. And so it's the same thing is to be said with your marriage. So the first thing is, there's pain, there's hurt. And so we definitely, please, keep listening in and tune in tonight. And we definitely want to connect with you, because it's important for you all to do a wellness check, for it to be able to hone in on where the pain is, so that we can clean out that infection, so that the healing process can begin.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that's important to remember is that when you have infidelity or challenges with your relationships, with your marriage, it exposes your vulnerability. So it shows you where your weak points are. And so obviously you want to make sure you address those things first, but it also points to, as you mentioned, some larger questions in regards to your marriage. What are your core values? What is your individual purpose? What's your collective purpose? What is your individual purpose on both sides? So there are some questions that you are all going to need to answer that are going to make up the fabric of your marriage and your relationship. But as Charmaine mentioned, absolutely be sure to get in contact with us, because that is what Couples Academy specializes in.
Absolutely.
Are couples in crisis and couples that have dealt with infidelity. And it is never too late. And know that even if you did have premarital counseling, you are going to always need those wellness checks. You and your partner are going to be growing. You're going to be changing. You're going to be evolving. There is something when people get divorced, and I never understood this term until I got deep into my marriage. It's called irreconcilable differences. And here's what irreconcilable differences are. It means that we have gotten to such a place of growth within our marriage that we are no longer the individuals that have married. We have grown apart. So the differences that exist between us cannot be bridged, because we are two different individuals from the ones that agreed to get married. So what you want to do is to help guard against that, is to make sure that you are growing together. Now, that does not mean that I have to be interested in the same things that Charmaine is interested in and vice versa. What it means is that I have an understanding of who she is. I have a respect for the things that she is involved in. And I am also have a role in how I support her in those things. And again, vice versa. So those are the things that are going to help you to continue to grow and evolve in your relationship. But once again, it is not too late. It's absolutely not too late.
I just want to add to the fact culture plays a big role in how we recover from crisis. We have all seen the model, we have seen the examples, and we've seen the non-examples, meaning the examples we don't want to follow behind, the examples we would rather leave right in our past. Culture plays a big role in that. And so when we audit, which is what we love to do, audit your forgiveness journey. What were you taught? What did you learn? What were you taught in your family about how, when we get in conflict, how do we recover from that? Do we just cut each other off and I'm done? And so we live in a culture, we live in a cancel culture. And this is one of the reasons why sometimes our relationships can struggle with friendships, family members, or even our spouse. So we do need help. We do need support, all of us. And so Walter and I, we're two different people, but the difference is two unique people growing, and we're doing the work together to stay connected. And so you absolutely can do that. And thank you for your question. And we'll definitely, look forward to supporting you and your wife.
You're tuned into Before I Do Speak Now Q&A night. Be sure to get your questions and your comments into the chat area. We'll be glad to share those. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with more Before I Do.
When 45 men from all walks of life come together in one place for one purpose, there is a collective harmony that produces an amplification of power that leaves an impact on the lives of men that cannot be erased. A fraternity of legendary men, all at the tipping point, on the precipice of greatness, meeting for one weekend to turn their worlds inside out. For the first time ever, the Foundry Experience. Not an event, not a seminar or retreat, but an opportunity to come face to face with the man you were always destined to be. If you want a life that's better than the one that you are living, meet us January 2023 for the Foundry Experience.
Hi, my name is Shawn Olivier, and I'm from Louisiana. My husband and I came to Last Chance Weekend because it was definitely our last chance. We were lost in the process. Being here is an experience that I can't really explain. You definitely have to experience it. I was the person that thought they will not get to me. My mind is my mind. It is set. This is how I feel. I will not budge. After the first day, it was pretty tough. It was long hours and it was hard conversations. The next day was a breaking point for me. It showed me how much my husband and I really still loved each other, that there was hope for our marriage. I watched testimonials, I've watched videos, and I did not believe it. I was like, there's no way 3 days is going to get you to a different point. Believe me when I say that there is hope, that you feel a sense of freedom within yourself and your marriage. I would not trust my well-being, my love, my marriage in any other hands than Couples Academy. That is my truth. They will forever be our family, our friends. I trust them, and I do not trust easily. If you are struggling with your own self-doubts, your own self-love, your marriage, get here. It is worth it. It is worth it. It is worth it.
You're tuned into the show that tells you or helps you figure out exactly what to do before saying I do. This is Before I Do. This is our Speak Now Q&A night, and we are joined again by the lovely and the talented, looking just like her father, Miss Charmaine Jennings. And so, Char, we actually were offline talking about some of the most awkward first date questions you have ever had. And Charmaine, you had a really interesting one. Would you mind sharing it?
Sure. So the question was what has been an awkward question that has been asked on a date? And for me, it was what's your body count?
What is your body count?
What's body, like how many people you killed, or?
So body count is referring to how many intimate partners or sexual partners that you had in the past. And for me, I would understand more if you were getting deeper into the relationship, but that was one of the first questions, not even how old I am.
Wow.
What's my degree, things of that nature. So I was very, not uncomfortable, but I was very surprised at that was a higher end question rather than other things of what's my major, what's my degree, where do I live, things I just have going on in my life. So I was very curious as to why that was one of the first questions they asked.
Yeah, did you infer anything by that question? Like what, for you, I mean, I don't know. Did you judge the other person? Because if somebody asked me what's my body count and how many sexual partners I've had on a first date, after, hi, what's your name again, Charmaine? Oh, okay, what's your body count? I mean, really? At some point, I don't know if, besides not probably making it to the main course of the meal, but I would really kind of question what their motive was.
Exactly. Yeah, and especially for a lot of, speaking from a man's perspective, it's an idea of, well, if the body count is high, I'm not trying to compete with other individuals that have gotten it, or it could be the opposite, where that if her body count is high, she's easy. So this is either somebody that I'm either going to lay and play with, but not want to deal with because the body count is high, or this is somebody that I want to have absolutely nothing to do with because the body count is high. But then the question is also subjective because what is too high of a count, and then what is a good appropriate number, and that actually depends on the individual. So for me, I think that that's obviously a very inappropriate question for a first date. But as you mentioned, Charmaine, I think it is an opportunity to inference about that individual, and to definitely make a decision in your best interest as well. So yeah,
and push back says, okay, well, tell me more about why you're interested in getting in that answer.
Right.
Tell me more about that. Like what about that question is so important for you? And we might be surprised, instead of judging them and assuming that they have ill intentions, we might find out that that's important to them because perhaps they are not interested in having sex at all.
I was just getting ready to ask that. Would there be a good scenario or a good reason why someone would ask that? Maybe again they have some health concerns. Just would there be a good reason? Or
they really are exercising abstinence. Like maybe I am, I'm a spiritual person. I'm preserving myself for marriage. And so maybe I'm asking, well, I don't know. I still don't think that's an appropriate question because you could ask other questions.
But I think it's the follow-up, it's the framing of that question, and not just leaving that as a standalone, but really being able to have a discussion about why, as you mentioned, why the question is important, and being able to hear that out. But I think that oftentimes too, people will ask certain questions so that they can be memorable. So it's
for the shock
and the awe of it all. And so, I think it can backfire on you though.
So I have a question for you. Do you think that question is appropriate once you have been, let's say 3 months, 6 months?
Yeah. When is a good time to ask a question like that?
Is that ever an appropriate question? And if so, for you, when?
For me, it's something I definitely thought about because you want to be careful with your health as well. In this generation, there are a lot of people out here that are not being completely honest about their past and how it relates to the present. If you have a disease, if you have a health concern that relates to your sexual partners, that can also affect your partner as well. So I believe in when both parties are comfortable, at least between a good couple of months together, just depending on the relationship you have with that person, you definitely should sit down and talk to that person and just discuss what you're comfortable with. Like, we don't discuss how many partners you've had, when's the last time you've been to the doctor, things of that nature. Questions that may not be too personal for that person, but to where you also feel safe, because your partner needs to feel safe with you.
Absolutely.
I mean, one thing I can respect about a person that at least is willing to talk about sexual history is that, one, they can say sex. So many people out here are willing to have sex and not say the word and not have conversations about sexual history, sexual concerns, and so the fact that that you're able to, in a lot of times at premarital counseling, it can be very uncomfortable for people talking about sexual history, past, things like that. So I think it's very powerful for couples to make sure that they have done their due diligence in having the conversation. Let's talk about sex. Let's talk about intimacy and our histories.
Yeah, and I think, Charmaine, you hit on something very important that Charmaine and your mother and I, we actually get into in our it's awkward to call her Charmaine in front of you, but we actually get into in our premarital sessions is health and wellness.
Yes.
So it's not just about sex, but as you mentioned, Charmaine, when was the last time you've been to the doctor? One of the things we get into in premarital counseling is, do you know your partner's blood type? And it's like, no, I don't even know my own.
That's a lost art.
Absolutely.
Because at one point in the United States, you couldn't even get married without a blood test.
Right.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
And so that's a lost art. But your father and I, we love to ask couples if they know their partner's blood type. And a lot of couples, well, like you said, a lot of people, they don't even know their blood type.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you love someone, you want to marry them, but what happens in the event of an emergency? You don't even know their blood type.
Right.
It can be a powerful thing, as well as helping them pursue their wellness goals.
Yeah. Do you know your medical history? Do you know your family's medical history? Obviously, those are deeper questions as you get into dating, and definitely things you should ask as you are in the engagement process of potentially getting married.
Mm-hmm.
But as you mentioned, Charmaine, those things are becoming less and less of an interest to people as far as pushing in on, and so I think it's really important that we get back to those type of questions. So
not a first date question.
No, I don't think it's first date question. Any awkward first question? Remember first questions for you, Charmaine?
Well, I don't know if there are any awkward questions on the first date, but I will say deeper in a relationship, I remember asking someone about their quote unquote body count. I didn't use body count because that wasn't the terms. But I remember asking, my partner about his body count, and he was like, no, we're not having this conversation. And so the question becomes is, if you're in a relationship, and actually I respect it, because sometimes we ask questions, we ask hard questions, but can you handle the answer? Can you handle the truth about the answer? And so, I don't know. What do you think is appropriate to share about? What do you think is necessary to share about your history? Everything? Is everything to be shared, or are some things reserved for you?
Yeah, I think it really depends on. I think it depends on the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think there has to be a level of trust that is involved with the couple as it relates to the sharing of that information, and a comfort level in not feeling judged. A lot of times too with certain questions is, if I'm honest about it, will it run this person away? Because I do have a past, because I have had some things that I'm not proud of, that I'm ashamed of, and I don't want this person to think that this is a reflection of who I am now. And so there are some really tough truths that we need to be sure that we're able to express, because again, when it comes to health and wellness, when it also again comes to the mental and emotional health and wellness of the relationship, being willing to open those things. But as you mentioned too, it's also knowing your partner, and are you sure you want to know the answer to that? And not only listening to the response, but also watching to see if they can handle it. Because sometimes our partners can't handle the answer to some of those questions. But again, a lot of that trust also comes into, who have I gotten to know this person to be? How have I experienced them? How have I observed them outside and above their representatives, which is what we like to talk about. Because when you begin dating someone, within the first few months, you're not really meeting them. Charmaine likes to say you're meeting their representative. You're meeting the salesman or the saleswoman, the person that they want you to see, the person that they want you to believe in, the person that they want you to think that they are. But as you go through different seasons with them, as you really allow time to set in, then it allows you to peel back the layers. Life begins to peel back the layers on that person, and you begin to observe them in various lights, which is really important.
I want to circle back to something that we talked about earlier, but I also want to encourage you, if you have a question,
yes,
fans of Before I Do, new viewers of Before I Do, please put your questions in the chat area, and so that we can answer your questions. This is your night. This is all about you. Okay, put your questions, relationship questions. I'm in a relationship with myself. Questions. What should I be doing to prepare myself to love on myself? Whatever the question is, go ahead and put it in the chat area. We'll be happy to really talk about that. But I do want to circle back around to culture. And so we have our oldest child here with us tonight. And so what have you seen from your parents? And I know this is a safe space. This is a brave space. I can't make it safe, but I can make it brave.
Is it really? Is it really?
But what would you say? And we believe in keeping it real in our house. Okay, what would you say you've seen model that was a good model regarding dating, even once you're in a dating, and then what were some non-examples?
Dating or like marriage?
That's a good question.
We believe in dating forever, for life. So from what are some things you learned that you think, okay, I think I will take this, I'll take this and keep this, and then some things that you might do differently.
The reason I ask is because with you and Dad, I've only known you all to be married. So although you guys do date while being married, I've only seen you guys being married, and I love the stories you tell me when you guys were dating. And sometimes it reminds me that you guys weren't always at this point. You guys weren't always at the point where everything was fine and you guys were just this power couple. You guys did go through times where everything wasn't perfect. And sometimes I forget that because of how strong you guys' relationship is with each other and with God. And it can set a high bar for me. And I'm also having to be okay with not everyone is going to have the same standards that you and Dad set. And you and Dad taught me. So it's a constant learning process, but I'm going to follow the standards that you guys have taught me and that I've learned over time, and I'm not going to change them.
Yeah, we also want to challenge you too, Charmaine, that we taught you those things as far as with principles and values, but you are also at an age where there are some you know you better than we know you. So this is not a license for you to forsake your principles and values, but it is an encouragement for you to really explore what things do I like and don't like as well. So to take the things that are a part of your foundation and really build upon them. So we don't want you to be limited to some of the things that you have even seen us do, because there are some things that you may have seen us do that were great for us, but they may not be things that you're in. Or there may be some things that you didn't see us do that are like, you know what, I think I would like to have this as a part of my relationship and part of my marriage. And we encourage you in that, just like we encourage for those of you listening as well, as far as your relationship and those things, your relationship is as unique as you are. Absolutely. And so even if whether you grew up with the non-example as it relates to your family and parental structure, or whether you grew up with a great example, the goal should not be to necessarily have exactly what those individuals had. That's you right. Want, because you don't know the quality of the years that you see. That's right. We see this person's been married 20 years, this person's been married 30 years, this person's been married 50 years. We need to be finding out the quality of those 50. How happy have they been during those 50? Do they still like each other after all those years of being married? And so there's a phrase that says it's not the number of years in your life, but it's the number of life in your years. So it's the same thing when it comes to our relationship. There's the bell. I forgot to introduce the bell. The bell travels with us everywhere we go. The bell goes with us. But it's about, again, taking our experience. It's about crafting the life that we want for ourselves and making the decision to do the work, to really push for and administer hold the standards of what it is that we want from life, and not backing down from that when it comes to the individuals that are going to be involved in it.
So, we have, and I'm so happy that Charmaine is here with us. She's home from college, so we're spending some family time together.
Yes.
But what was it like dating, right? You're 16, your parents allow you to date. What were some of the concerns that you had? Because parents say things, right? But they don't always mean what they say. They say you can date, but what they really mean is, go, you can leave the house with someone. You better come back the same way you left, and better not be none of that other stuff. So I guess for you, I don't know, just what were some of those moments for you that shifted between being a child dating in your house, your parents' house, and then I guess dating outside of your parents' house? Like, were there any, I don't know, did you feel prepared? What was your experience or your journey?
I think for me, it's been hard because, like I said, you guys have set the bar really high for me in the sense that Dad opens the door for you after all these years. Dad remembers anniversaries. He remembers your birthday. He remembers flowers. Like, Dad shows you how much that he loves and cares about you.
He does.
And it's hard realizing that as we progress in society, that's not being normal anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are not the bare minimum anymore for a lot of people. And for me, that was something Dad constantly does and continues to do. And that's what I wanted. I wanted someone to open the door for me. That's the bare minimum. Mm-hmm. Dad has always done that for our family. So for me, it was hard comprehending that there are men out there that Dad's going above and beyond, opening the door, remembering your birthday, asking you out, just being a good person in society and genuinely showing interest in you.
That makes me sad.
Yeah,
that makes me sad because we would hear this expression that, chivalry is dead. Why? Like, who went to that funeral? Like,
mm-hmm.
we're gonna call chivalry back, and it's okay to be romantic. It's okay to and to wait and to have your standards and say, you know what? I only want gentlemen who believe it's the gentleman thing to do to open the door for me. Not because I can't open it for myself, but because he just thinks enough of me to do that. To me, that's the sweetest thing when I see, 80-year-old couples and they're still,
mm-hmm.
considering each other. And to me, that's something that, you don't allow that expectation or that standard to be lowered because certain people view that as, it's foreign. It's something that they're not used to.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Lady Di is joining us. Lady Di says, good point about your expectations. Life is sometimes trial and error. Mm-hmm. So it's being able to learn the lessons from those experiences. And also, Lady Di says, amen on chivalry and integrity. And Nellie says, this is so beautiful. This is so beautiful, family. Thank you for sharing. So thank you all so much again for tuning in to Before I Do. This has been our first Speak Now Q&A night. Again, this is going to take place the last Wednesday night of every month. Charmaine, we want to say in front of everybody, how much we love you and how proud of you we are, not just academically, but just as the woman that you are growing into. And we want to encourage you to hold firm in your standards too, and to believe and trust that God is going to give you exactly the desires of your heart, and do not back off those standards of what he's placed inside of you. God is faithful, and he is going to bless you.
And I will just remind our audience out there, especially with a parental relationship, things shift. She's a young adult.
They are watching.
They are watching us.
They are watching.
She will see us date. We have to model the model.
Yes.
So I would put on my little sexy dress, and I would go out with my man. And it was important for her to see that and us enjoying each other. And so model the model, but also cultivate the relationship with your adult children.
Yes.
Have these courageous conversations, right? To be able to encourage one another. And so I will say that if you can't have these conversations with your children, they are definitely having these conversations with someone else.
Yes.
Okay. So just encouraging you in that parental role. We do have to model the model. We have to encourage them. And we literally have a great opportunity to coach them in their dating journey. And so don't be afraid of it. Don't tell them not to date, because then you're missing the opportunity to be a good coach and an advisor.
Yep.
Through the good, bad.
Whether you are in a relationship with yourself or you're in a relationship with someone else, if you have children, your children are watching. So bear in mind that those young, impressionable minds are learning how to govern themselves, and they are either confirming or they are being corrupted in regards to the hope that they have for themselves. Again, thank y'all so much for tuning into Before I Do. We'll see you all same time next week right here on the Couples Academy. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
Well, I'm glad we got a serious question, I hope.